Boom! Greetings from YouTubeville. Once again, Danny Savage, Drift Guru. And we're on, what's today? Wednesday. Today's Fantasy Wednesdays. Because we live in a fantasy world. I'm also going to be dropping another video after this. If you like, subscribe, and give it a like. Give it a thumbs up. All right. Listen, man, we've had this conversation before for the last couple of Wednesdays. If you're actually playing fantasy football in a regular 10, 12-man league, it's like that's the Stone Age, people. We advance. We went from flip phones to iPhones. We went from dial-up to cable. Advance over. There's much other better ways where you can spend your time, actually less time. I'm telling you, if I got to do these early morning videos, I got to start drinking coffee. I haven't drank coffee in years. I take that back. I drink coffee like once a month. Wait a second. Still the best beers on YouTube. All right. So if you're still in the Stone Age playing football, I'm going to make it a way for your league to be more exciting. And if you're in a typical 12-man league, it kind of helps the guy who picks 12 because you're going 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the fourth round, the man with the 12th pick, the team with the 12th pick, picks first. All right, people, let's be honest. When it comes to fantasy football, gotta move this a minute. Team defenses are horrible. But if you want to play team defenses, one tip and advice is listen, unless you have the number one ranked defense in the NFL, they're interchangeable. Perfect example. Let's look at the worst teams. This is what and this goes back to upside, which we've had a video about. Carolina Panthers are gross. Pick up who's ever playing against the Carolina Panthers every week. The Giants are gross. Who's ever playing the Giants? Pick them up. That's Sunday. Unless you have, like I said, the number one rated defense, there's no reason to carry a defense on your roster the entire week. Look up the 5 worst teams in the NFL, then also look at the weather because weather plays a factor, and then you just pick up your team who's playing them. Common sense, people, but common sense is not common. But what this video was really about is IDPs, individual defensive players. And bro, my league, one league I was in, we were doing IDPs back in like 2007, 2008. And I don't know why guys just join up any leagues that you're not throwing huge ducats down and you're not being able to customize. It's your group of friends or people you hate. It's your hard-earned ducats, and you can't customize. There's a million leagues that you can customize. So the way IDP works, and this is what separates the men from the boys, and this is where guys like me shined. And that's why I won the league like 9 times out of like 18 years. Okay, the way IDP, individual defensive leagues work is you have to start 6 6 defensive players every single Sunday. You got to start 2 defensive backs. It can be a corner or a safety. We'll get back to that later. You have to you have to play 2 linebackers every Sunday. And then you have 2 other positions where they could be defensive linemen or anything. All right. So let's start with the defensive backfield. You don't want corners. You don't. Corners are hit and miss. They're just it's like streaky. One game they might get you 50, unless they get an interception or a touchdown. They're not getting you any points. What you want is a run stopping safety on a shitty team. Excuse my language. Why might you say a shitty team? Is because that run stopping safety is going to be on the field the entire game. I remember the one year I'm going back, I had Adrian Wilson. Bro, he had like 9 sacks. He was a monster at safety. Monster at safety. Barry Church from the Dallas Cowboys was a monster at safety. Monster. So the way the IDP works, though, the scoring system is a tackle is 1 point. A forced fumble is a point. A recovered fumble is a point. An interception is 4 points. A touchdown is 6 points, like in the real world. Now, when we get to linebackers, you get yourself, now you got to start 2 of them. You get yourself a stud middle linebacker, he's going to put up the exact same points as a stud running back. Because you get yourself, and usually like IDPs start flying off the board in the 4th round. And that's where it kind of helps the guy who's picking 12. Honestly, in fantasy football, I liked picking 12 sometimes. If I wasn't in the top 3, I liked picking 12 because we all know when it comes to your pick, you always have like 2 to 3 guys in your head. So I liked picking back to back, but that's just me. So then, like I said, then we go to defensive lineman, but you don't have to go defensive lineman. Those 2 spots can be anything. So, prime example, I had Sean Merriman. I drafted Sean Merriman his rookie season. And he got busted for being on the cranberry juice. And he only played 12 games that year. And he had 18 sacks. So I'm playing a guy in the championship game. It was the Chargers versus the Raiders. And I hope he's listening to this. And I forgot who he had playing for the Raiders, but I had Sean Merriman playing. First play of the game, Sean Merriman, sack, 4 points. Second play of the game, Sean Merriman, sack, 4 points. Third play of the game, sack and a forced fumble. 4, 8, 12, 14. He got me 14 points in the first the first drive of the game. The kid just shut the game off and was like, yo, you got this. Anyone can know offensive players. Defensive players make it makes it much more funner, and it also makes it much more trickier come bye weeks. Because are you really going to drop a stud linebacker or a stud DB, a stud safety, or like when TJ Watt was going off, when DeMarcus Ware was going off? Are you really going to drop one of those guys for an offensive player? It makes bye weeks very, very tricky. I remember there was one year, it was a championship game, and I wasn't in it. but I was watching it. We all were at work watching it, and it was this one kid was up. Kid was up like 10 points. You can Google this. It's on YouTube. My friend showed it to me one day. This kid was up 10 points with like legit 2 minutes left in the game. This kid was counting his money already, counting it, counting his ducats. The kid he was playing had a Dalius Thomas, outside linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. 2 minutes left in the game, people. Like 2 to 4 minutes left in the game. Adalius Thomas had a sack, forced fumble, recovered fumble, and a touchdown. So the sack was 4 points. The fumble, forcing the fumble was 2, so we're at 6. Recovering the fumble was at 8, and then he scored a touchdown. So he was up by 10 with like 3 minutes left in the game, and the one defensive end had a 14-point play. Bro, we were ripping on this kid. Ripping on this kid. I've seen defensive plays. I seen a game one time, D'Angelo Hall. He had like close to 50 points one time. I'm not a fan of D'Angelo Hall, but what I'm trying to say is cornerbacks are a little, I stick with safeties. And you want a safety, and you also want linebackers on bad teams. Perfect example, Jalen Smith. Yo, listen, I don't blame him because that kid was never supposed to walk again the way he blew his knee out at Notre Dame. And if he doesn't blow his knee out, he's a top 5 pick. Long story short, Dallas drafted him and like took a year. And the fact that he even made it back on the field and did what he did was a miracle. He led one year. He led the NFL in tackles. The problem was they were all 15 yards downfield. But what do you care in fantasy football? Whether you make a tackle 15 yards down the field, or if you make a tackle 5 yards in the backfield, it's a point. And it's even funnier if like when you have a running back or a quarterback or wide receiver, tight end on your team, your quarterback throws an interception, bang, that's minus 2 points. But now one of your guys makes a tackle, that's a point for them. All I'm trying to say is team defense is a joke, man. And if me and my boys were doing this, 15 years ago plus, I don't know why anyone can. A lot of people bitch that, excuse my language, that it makes the draft longer, but that make individual defensive players separates the men from the boys. And let me tell you something. We were throwing down crazy ducats back 15 years ago. It was super, super competitive. You had to have your phone on you left and right. And fantasy football was so much easier for me back then because I was the guru and I knew all the rookies coming out that I can grab super, super late. And then it went to all these sites, and people would actually pay for sites and to pay for advice, who to pick up, who to not. And then once the invention of the smartphone came up, you got your notifications if somebody's hurt, your notifications. So that made fantasy football a lot easier for the standard nerd who doesn't know anything about football. But I'm telling you, people, if you're going to play regular fantasy football, individual defensive players is a way to go. Because think about it, it makes the game more funner. Because now you have guys, not only do you have guys playing in the same game on offense, it's possible you have guys playing on defense too. So it makes. Let's say Carolina is playing the Giants, and let's be honest, unless you're a fan of those teams, and then I even find it hard to watch, but you're going to watch that game because you might have a linebacker on Carolina and a DB on the Giants or worse. So it makes more games more enjoyable for people that do serious fantasy football. And that's where I got the Guru nickname, just for dominating. Dominating. I've been doing the draft my whole life, but I mean the regular NFL draft in April. I've been doing the draft. Well, shut up. I've been doing the draft my whole life, but I got the Guru nickname from all the fantasy titles I won. So listen, if you're gonna play regular fantasy football, individual players is the way to go. And it also helps out the guy picking fourth. And it makes it much more fun of people. Trust me. We all know when you're rocking with the GWO, it's for life. Over and out, people.